Alright, hello everyone and welcome to NFL Discussion. I'm your host and NFL enthusiast, Doug. In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing Week 6 of the 2022 NFL season. And in this week of NFL action, it seems that New York football is back. The Jets and Giants beat teams that some people had projected as their potential division winners for the 2022 season. The Jets went on the road and beat the Packers, while the Giants closed out another close victory with some assistance from their defense against the Ravens. Packers definitely have some issues, and so do the Buccaneers. With that, we'll go ahead and get right into the action, starting with the Giants. So they make a strong statement knocking off the Ravens. And last week they were able to beat the Packers, but over the past week, so the Packers have had some major issues on both sides of the ball. This week, the Giants beat one of the league's best teams, and the Ravens, who came into Sunday's game with a 4-5 scoring offense. The Giants limited them to 20 points and forced turnovers on Baltimore's last two possessions, scoring off one of the takeaways, and then Saquon Barkley stopped short of a touchdown to drain the clock for the victory. Coming into Week 6, the Giants gained momentum, earning victories over struggling or average to below average squads. Now, with a win over Baltimore, they've proved that they have a legitimate shot to earn a postseason spot. At 5-1, they are among 4 teams in the NFC that have winning records, and also one of the only teams that has a record like that. They're one of the few teams that has a 5-1 record, so I think it's safe to say they're real. But believe it or not, they are for real. I don't know if they'll be able to beat the Eagles, but I definitely could see the Giants as a postseason team with the way they're playing. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers offense are in down bad territory. So before Sunday, the Steelers hadn't won a game without TJ Watt. They finally won the game without him, and in the process, but they did so without 2 of their starting quarterbacks, and also Minka Fitzpatrick as well. So heading into Week 6, the Steelers had given up 11 touchdowns through the air and allowed the 3rd most passing yards. Yet the Buccaneers offense struggled in Pittsburgh. Brady only threw 1 touchdown against a depleted secondary, and Tampa Bay moved the ball at 4.5 yards per play compared to Pittsburgh's 4.4 yards per play rate, with Kenny Pickett, who would exit the game ready for concussion, and Mitchell Trubisky under center. Now, Brady couldn't take advantage of a soft get-right matchup for the offense. In this season, the Buccaneers have scored more than 25 points once, and that happened in the one-sided loss to the Chiefs. The Falcons got a win on Sunday, which doesn't put them far behind the Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers want to reign on top of the NFC stuff. They have to figure out a way to spark their offense. And honestly, it does kind of give me last season vibes for Tom Brady. Like, with the way this offense is struggling and everything else, I feel like if Tampa Bay, regardless of what happens, I shouldn't say regardless of what happens, but I feel like if they aren't able to figure things out, Tom Brady might just dip. I don't think he comes back trying to win another Super Bowl, or trying to do that. If this is how the Buccaneers offense is going to play, really there's no excuse. You have way too much talent to not be this inept. Packers continue to regress offensively. So coming into Week 6, the Packers had some offensive issues, and in a loss to the Jets, they might have hit rock bottom. They finished with their second lowest point total of the season, and special team unit allowed a block that was returned for a touchdown, and the defense gave up 125 plus rushing yards for the 3rd straight week. Now, clearly, and this has been an issue talked about all year, but the Packers still need more consistency from the pass-catching group. Though Lazard did have solid outings, so at the very least, you're getting consistency from your number 1 tight end and your number 1 wide receiver, but that's about it. And as for their punch in the backfield, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, well, those guys registered just 19 carries for 60 yards combined. To make matters worse for the Packers, Randall Cobb exited the game with an ankle injury, and Aaron Rodgers is dealing with a thumb injury, though that's supposed to be minor, but is it minor more than he's letting on? Green Bay also selected 2 defenders in the first round of the draft in 2022, but neither of those guys have provided a boost for on that side of the ball. Back in February, the Packers fired their special teams coordinator and hired Rich Bisaccia to replace him after a disastrous 2021 campaign for that unit, but the Jets outplayed Green Bay in that phase of the game. And while most analysts might point to the passing attack as still a major problem for the Packers in the post-Devontae Adams era, the ground game has been inconsistent. Meanwhile, the defense has fallen apart in each of the last 3 contests. And unfortunately for the Packers, there's no shortcomings. Instead, they gotta fix the problems on the fly short order because they have an upcoming 3-week road trip. Shining in an AFC showdown with the Chiefs. So, in a quarterback-driven Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen own the spotlight and the storylines leading up to this matchup. It was thought that perhaps the Chiefs and Bills would put on an offensive fireworks show similar to their division round battle from last year's playoffs, the 2021 playoffs. And while this game matched high from a competitive standpoint, ultimately the Bills were able to beat the Chiefs in a much lower scoring contest compared to the previous meeting. However, it was the turnovers and plays from the defense that settled this game for the Bills. Offensively, these teams are equal. They went into Sunday's contest ranked first and second respectively in scoring. Buffalo has the number 1 scoring defense with 11 takeaways to complement its offense. Complete team football right there. In the end, the Bills had the Chiefs to their second lowest scoring total of the 2022 campaign, and when you look at Kansas City, they've lost both games in which they've scored fewer than 21 points. So coming into Week 6, the Chiefs had the 24th ranked scoring defense, so it looks like they're going to struggle if their offense turns the ball over multiple times. As for the Bills, they're going to beat opponents with their offensive fire and slow down their opponents with a stout defense. Like I said, complete team football. And as for Sunday nights, well, starting with the Cowboys, Cooper Rush completed 18 of 38 passes for 181 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. So Rush looked shaky from the start against the Eagles, whose pass rush and athletic secondary continued to make things difficult for him. The 3 interceptions were his first in the season. And most in the game in his NFL career. Rush locked on to CeeDee Lamb in this game, feeding him 10 targets despite lockdown coverage. His only touchdown of the game came through a great effort from the rookie tight end Jake Ferguson, who juked the defender. This was likely Rush's final start before the team welcomes back franchise quarterback Dak Prescott, who was reportedly close to playing in this game after working out on the field before the game. And I haven't quite talked about this on the channel, but this is kind of like a theory I've always had, which is theory of the backup quarterback. And basically the way it works is that if your starting quarterback is dealing with a minor injury or something that won't keep him out all season, they're really only out as long as the backup plays well. And for the Cowboys, Cooper Rush played well for, 4 weeks? Yeah, he played well for 4 weeks. He struggled in this game, but then again, I think most quarterbacks have struggled against the Eagles' defense, so yeah, it's no surprising he struggled, but Prescott's ready to go. But I think, we can expect to see Prescott back under center next week, because Rush finally had his first loss, and he played terrible as a result. And again, the Eagles do have a good defense, but I think it's time to get Dak Prescott back under center. As for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts completed 15 of 25 passes for 155 yards and 2 touchdowns, adding 7 carries for 29 yards. Hurts wasn't asked to do much in the second half after the Eagles jumped out to an early 20-0 lead in the second quarter, throwing for his lowest yardage total of the season, in addition to being kept out of the end zone on the ground for only the second time this season. His 2 touchdown passes went to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who both seem to have no issues getting open all evening. Interesting though that Dallas Goedert only had 22 yards on 5 targets in a game where pass volume was hard to come by due to positive game script. The departure of Lane Johnson in the first half led to some increased pressure in the backfield for the remainder of the game, which did make things difficult for Jalen Hurts. But he will look to regain his elite status, or his elite upside, after the Eagles' bye week and an Week 8 clash with the visiting Steelers. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of NFL Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.